Start with the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Councillor Medlock, Councillor Croft, moving and seconding, thank you. All those in favor? Councillor carries, thank you. Now, we've had significant feedback, and there's a couple members of the public here who probably be keen on providing more feedback on the solid waste collection and disposal bylaw. We'll open up with some feedback from Mr. Forlowski.
Thank you, Worship. This issue was undertaken in the amendment of this bylaw or the repeal and presentation of a new bylaw earlier this year. As interested stakeholder groups wanted to have this bylaw revisited. And quite frankly, the old bylaw spoke to some outdated issues that we used to deal with, specifically the landfill. So this bylaw needs to be either amended or repealed and a new one put in place. We had a report back in June, and Council decided wisely to open it up to public consultation. So we had the report and the draft bylaw put online and available at the front desk for public comment, and we did receive comment. The word significant, unfortunately, might not apply, as there were under half a dozen comments for individuals that chose to comment. And Council may, moving forward, want to put out a final draft, up to obviously of any bylaw that you wish to move forward. However, I have summarized the particulars of the feedback and the general trends, and I hope that in reading the report it becomes apparent that the two general trends are, quite frankly, most people want to be able to take their garbage out the evening before, and also most of the comments, certainly one very strong comment related to animals and the fear that we could be over-regulating and over-protecting animals, vice the public's interest in being able to take out and place waste curbside in containers and basically their freedom to do so. If we go through the particulars, if I can, in paragraph 1, there's some the comment made about seniors being unable to place the waste early in the morning on the collection day, and the general response was some municipalities do ultimately say you can't put it out the night before, and in relation to our scheduled pickup, it is possible to determine with first class, is it going to be a morning pickup or an afternoon pickup? So you do get some granularity and detail there when you could be expected to put it out. Ultimately, in all communities, there's usually morning pickup, so it's not a particular thing that would be suffered by seniors only in Hope, and others manage to do it. Concern was expressed regarding the proposed subsection 3B, whether or not this bylaw would preclude other businesses from starting up recycling or processing programs, for example, converting rubber tires to reusable material. And our response is no. The aim of this section is to preclude the establishment of other landfills or transfer stations handling solid waste. And it should be noted that residents of Hope are required to participate in the district's solid waste program. Number 3, 3C might need clarity. Is it intended to mean that solid waste should be in containers? And you see in the draft bylaw and previous bylaws, we have to define what containers are approved for use. And we leave that a little bit nebulous. We can't actually put a schematic in there. Well, we could, but it would be so closely defined that if there's a change in technology or a change in contractors, a change in the way you do things, you have to come back and amend the bylaw. So most bylaws will say in a container approved by, for example, in this case, the Director of Operations. And currently the containers, the 23-liter garbage containers you buy or use for recycling garbage, they are approved. So that should not be an issue. So 3C, though, speaks to dumping of solid waste in private properties, on streets, and on lanes. And so it doesn't mean that you can do it in containers. The bylaw basically says you shouldn't dump your solid waste in any container on private property, in streets, or on lanes. You should put it curbside for collection at the proper time in the proper manner. The next one is number 4, and that was regarding section 5B, some technical clauses that related primarily to the landfill. So we stated that these can be deleted from the section because we now have a transfer station. So we think those clauses don't apply, and we see no particular problem with that. Paragraph 5, concerning section 7, regarding the use of any waste and easily accessible. Now, section 7 speaks to the introduction of regulating behaviors about attractants. People putting out garbage in such a way and in such a manner that they could attract wildlife or domestic animals. So originally we had the word any waste in there, and I put any waste in quotations. We think that should be left in because it is meant to encapsulate any solid garden or kitchen scraps and includes recyclables if they act as an attractant as regulated by the bylaw. However, when it comes to easily accessible, we agree that the word easily could be removed, but accessible left in. Again, we recommend that that council and the district have the ability to regulate the behavior to, ideally in extreme cases, dissuade people from behaving in such a way that they attract animals, be they domestic or wild. As council has pointed out, the effort in this bylaw will be in education as opposed to punitive measures. But at the end of the day, some form of empowerment is recommended in that regard. Section 6 regarding section, section 6 in the report regarding section 8A, precluding residents from taking their own solid waste to the transfer station. The question was, does this bylaw preclude that? And no, it does not. However, it may not make sense, quite frankly, because you're already paying for residential garbage pickup. And if it can fit and be picked up according to the bylaw at curbside, why would you take it to the transfer station and incur extra charges? Paragraph 7 concerned the draft bylaw, paragraph 8C3. Again, that's the containers. Will this preclude compost bins on residential property? And no, this bylaw is not meant to define what compost containers can be used on private property for the purpose of composting. It's only meant to regulate the containers used for curbside pickup. Now, flexibility again is, as I've said, regarding containers needs to be maintained in this bylaw because again, technology and contractors change. But also, one of the purposes of this bylaw amendment is that as the region goes to ban organics from landfills in 2017, 2018, we need the ability to define what the containers will be in that case. And that has yet to be determined. As we move forward, we have to look at the contractors that may be used, the systems that may be used, and ultimately the types of bins that may be used, if they be wheeled, if not, pails, what have you. So council needs the flexibility in the bylaw to allow for those developments. And the final detailed comment was made concerning section 5B 7 and 5B 8 conflicting, and that relates to sorted recyclables and just recyclables, and we refer the person with the feedback to look at section 5B, the deposit transfer station. So that's kind of a technical response. Items are not excluded. The only excluded items at the transfer station are under section 5B. So it's a fairly narrow list because we are encouraging recycling, responsible landfilling, responsible waste disposal. So, and of course it assists in customer service as far as ratepayers go. They pay to have disposal picked up, and they want the maximum service for their money, and that's what we intend to deliver. So the report finishes with a restatement of the trends, again expressed by under a dozen direct commentators or commenters on the bylaw. That's the overnight drop-off or curbside delivery of garbage for pickup the next day, and the animal attractant regulation. That's what staff gleaned from the feedback, Your Worship, and it's open now for council discussion and deliberations as to any other changes or these changes that you wish to make.
Okay, I'm sure council will have plenty to say here. Just a couple of quick things before I forget, and that is pertaining to the substantial feedback I received on the phone, or as you bump into people coincidentally and hope. The opportunity to educate and for folks that are actual long-standing offenders to ticket them, that's generally seen as a very good thing for people that track pests, because right now, as most people know, the Conservation Office was very clear in saying that a small issue pop up in Hope would not be dealt with by a conservation officer. And I know the Bear Aware Committee's been very vocal in dealing with this. So I think that's under the heading of good news to have some teeth available, so to speak, to deal with that issue if folks leave their attractants out. There's been significant feedback that I've heard pertaining to the whole issue of putting it out the day of, because we have a lot of folks here that are semi-retired or retired, and they spend their whole life getting up at 5 in the morning, and they're not overly keen on doing that. So I honestly think that's going to be an almost impossible sell in our community. The night before, I think, is very appropriate. And if folks are gone for a couple of days, they could probably work with their neighbors to get the garbage up when it's appropriate, so on and so forth. So I don't think putting it out the night before imposes an undue hardship on anyone. And then, of course, that keeps the folks happy that would like to sleep beyond 6 in the morning. And the other thing here, this is to Mr. Kowalski here, point 2 on your report pertaining to the establishment of transfer stations handling solid waste. I'll just to clarify here, I know there's one gentleman in town here, Mr. Lasser, who has a bit of a transfer station situation there. Now, is there, that's just for sort of in-house contract work that he does, it's been set up, so on and so forth. Now, is that kind of use allowed under this new?
So he does, you're saying he would do bin setup, or exactly what? You might.
Well, he has on his property, because he does a lot of contracting work, he's able to, so he doesn't have mixed loads going in. I guess he has 3 bins set up, and
so he can sort those before they go ultimately to a transfer station or on their further disposal? We don't see a problem with that?
now the other thing is, what is wrong with having another transfer station in the community, as long as it's not starting a landfill?
Again, Your Worship, that's a political question, and council can be quite clear in its direction. Ultimately, there is none. This is just a recommendation. You could open up other transfer stations.
I mean, if someone...
But then you're left to zoning.
Yeah, but if someone is in business, has the appropriate zoning, would like to start a transfer station, and would like to remove waste when it's sorted and take it out of town and to wherever, a certified disposal site, I don't really see that as a big problem.
Yes, Your Worship, it's possible, and then ultimately we would have to go back on zoning, and council's desired zoning. So no, that can be included in the bylaw to allow for that.
Under number 3B, on page 2, 3B.
3B, on section 2 of the report, yes?
Yeah. Then it says, any use of other land within the municipality for the disposal or transfer of garbage and of solid waste is prohibited.
That's what Mayor just talked about.
That's what I'm saying, so it's
Yep.
in here, so it's saying it's prohibited.
That's correct. That could be changed, obviously, at council direction to allow for other transfer stations if you so wish.
So that,
I'm just testing the waters with council. Is that something that council would be? Yeah.
I have a question about that same sort of line. Well, there's a few different topics I want to touch on a bit, but one is the zoning aspect of it. I'm pretty sure, looking back in their council information package on zoning, there was a couple zones that allowed for transportation specifically. So you're right, we'd have to look at changing that if we were going to change this as well. And then there's also the idea that this looks like we're trying to protect our current contractor. I don't know if we're allowed to do that. That's sort of pushing the envelope there as to, allowing one business to hold that job and that's it. I know there's been other examples where that's happened. I think there has been anyways, like the auto wrecker, for example, when there was one property in town that was owned for the auto wrecking. That was a way of not turning the whole town into a bunch of auto wreckers. And the other thing I would talk about on that is too, just like you say, the bin service. I mean, our contractor, collection contractor and landfill operator also has a bin service. So we're talking bigger loads. And there's other companies out there, some based in Hope, some not. But if they're doing work in and around the area, are they required to bring those loads in that large volume to the district land or transfer station? Because that's kind of how it is to me, right?
Your worship, no, to your last, to Councilor Medlock's last point. So you'll remember that commercial pickup is contracted individually here in the district, so they can choose to contract with first class. They can contract with anyone they want, as far as I understand it, and where those contractors choose to transfer their waste, or ultimately landfill, it is up to them.
Councilor Pearson?
If you look at number 8, it says there, it shall be mandatory for every residential, commercial, institutional, industrial, and or other real property in the municipality to have their solid waste collected by the collector. The collector.
Yeah.
One collector.
That is correct. That is the contracted collector, your worship, that the municipality is contracted with for solid waste disposal.
So that doesn't sound like there's much competition there to me.
For the commercial aspect.
Right, yes, yes. I will have to get back to council and check that out. I'm glad you brought that up.
Because when I was thinking, we had a fire like we had up here, and their insurance company comes in and says, we're gonna get someone to bid on that. They're gonna get first class to bid on that, and that's the only one? I mean,
No.
that doesn't sound right.
That's certainly not the intent, your worship.
Okay.
I will have this confirmed for removal.
Okay. Additional comments from council?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the lines reading my notes that I had here. That a lot of towing and salvage companies do work outside of the District of Hope boundaries. They collect waste that they then have to dispose of on highway cleanups and things like that. So I just want to make sure that they have the ability to dispose of that waste wherever they see fit. It doesn't mean they have to bring it to our transfer station. And like I say, the same goes for their collector. If they happen to have that same service that they offer, and they shouldn't have to bring it here when they can simply bring it to their other transfer stations that they deal with where our waste eventually ends up anyways, right? But that's, I think, that it needs to be clear here so that it's not a question that needs to come out of this. It needs to be either in there or a little bit better.
So, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So on the number 10, the offenses and penalties, which says that the penalty not exceeding $500 and each day that a violation continues to exist is a separate offense. So I guess what I'm thinking is, like, in situations where we have somebody that's evicted, let's say, and they have a pile of stuff suddenly, and clearly they have no money. So whose responsibility would that be? The owner of the property or the owner of the belongings, the garbage?
Well, I'd like to turn that over, our corporate services director has all this file on knowledge of it.
No recent examples being discussed.
That one is a unique situation in the sense that usually if it is on property, then it is the property owner that is responsible. In this particular case, it's on district right.
Exactly.
So further investigations have to be on this specific case.
Okay, so anywhere in our bylaw, does it give us the ability to review those kinds of things so that we are not suddenly putting a bill of $50,000 on someone when it's, I'm exaggerating, but hopefully. But I'm saying, like, for example, the $500 in each day that a violation continues to exist is a separate offense. I mean, I guess I'm kind of looking for a little bit of human factor here. Is there any opportunity for our bylaw enforcement to go and say, hey, what's your plan? You know, you live here, are you gonna remain living here? What's happening? Because we need this cleaned up. Like, what's going on with that?
We always strive for voluntary compliance, and we'll work with the people to get voluntary compliance. Fines are not something that we can work with first work. And in this particular case, we are working with the parties involved.
But we're talking about that now, but it really doesn't say that in our bylaw. So if none of us are here in 5 years, this bylaw is all that remains, not us. So what happens then? So I'm just saying, for the community's benefit, where is that leeway, or where is that human factor that we can say, hey, we would like to firstly work with our community, and then in the event that we cannot, this can be our steps.
It's a municipal, it's an in-house practice that we instill. I've never seen a municipality that will write that in a bylaw. But it's just a practice that we instill here.
Because I guess why I'm kind of getting on that is because, like, for the last 20 years or so that I've seen bylaws come and go, I guess what I've seen is that the intent has changed. It has not been clearly what the council of the day, the policymakers have decided that it was going to be. The discussion was much like this, but sometimes over the period of that 20 years, the intent is completely different, in fact, than what it was at the beginning. So that's where I'm concerned. I would like to see the intent of the bylaw somewhere.
Your worship, if I could address that, perhaps we can change the word shall to may
May, that would be
in that. And that would give some discretion, and clearly for the major cases where staff is looking to levy substantial fines according to this bylaw, it could be brought to council for endorsement.
That might be better than, I could live with that.
Now, on my little fishing expedition here, is it the consensus of council that evening before pickup is agreeable to everyone? The voice of the moment is
The reason I'm okay with that is because we were told by our Blackbird committee that, you know, there hasn't been a lot of instances of bears and other wildlife being attracted by the solid waste. So I think instead of assuming there's a problem, we should just leave it like that until there is a problem. And if there is, then we can always readdress that concern. But at this point, I think we're okay. So I don't want to create any extra bylaws that are not going to be enforced because we don't have people on staff to do that. So I think we're okay with leaving it at the night before. That's why I'm comfortable with that.
Yes. And thank you to you. And also, much the same reasons, but also the fact that in the event that there's going to be a change in our collection process with the recyclable and the other waste that will be coming down the pipe possibly, that at that time we'll be able to address any of the issues that may be foretold for, you know, bears looking at scraps from the table in containers that aren't suitable. We'll find that out pretty quickly, and I think we can probably amend the bylaw to address that issue at that time.
All right, worship, I know we're drawing clear. Then if I could just summarize, then there are 3 things I'm going to do, and I'll bring this bylaw back to committee of the whole at the next meeting in a redrafted form, if that's acceptable to you. And that will be to encapsulate and allow for overnight deposit of curbside waste. I will remove the offensive language in regards to non-compete. We'll try to draft it so that makes sense. And as far as enforcement goes, we will change the wording from shall for the penalty to may. Yeah, no, that's all. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, sounds very good. Yes, motion to close it.
So moved?
Okay. Councilor Crowe, Councilor Smith. Sounds good. And then we'll, 2-minute break.